Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here together. Please take a moment and look around. Say hi with your eyes to all the people who are here. And we do our best to feel that we're in community, even though we're on Zoom. And for those who are here in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, we now have the meditation hall open for anybody who wants to be in person. I'm in the office at Common Ground, but there's a screen, big screen in the meditation hall, and people can sit. And that allows you to have small groups in person at the end of the Sunday morning program. So keep that in mind if you live in town here to join in for that. And we'll get started in maybe another minute. Just give folks a little bit more time to arrive. Yeah, Jeremy, just responding to your chat. Shelley Graff is on retreat and teaching outside of Common Ground, but mostly on retreat until the middle of August. And then when they get back, Shelley will be reassessing what is best for their situation in terms of in-person versus online. So you just have to wait until early or mid-August to get your answer about the Wednesday night. But for the immediate future, Shelley's lined up some other teachers to cover for them on Wednesday evening. So there will be one of Common Ground's teachers teaching. I think Stacy McClendon might be teaching this Wednesday night, one of our regular Dharma teachers. Well, really nice to be with everyone this morning. And I'm going to paste in the chat, and I'll do it again as other people join in. But this is the document that has the resources for your own personal study as we continue to look at the paramis. And I've included in these resources the chant that we've been learning. Some of you know this already, the anicca chant. Anicca is the Pali word for impermanence. And excuse me, this is a chant that's often done at memorial services or funerals for people, aligned with the Buddhist teachings. And we'll do this in just a moment. So you might want to open that up so you have the Pali. We repeat the Pali phrases, just a few, 3 times, and then we'll read the translation, the English translation together. And of course, I'll have you all muted, but you'll hear my voice. And yeah, it's just good to learn over time these different chants. Some people especially really need these, I don't know if it's best to call them devotional aspects of the path, but they definitely have that or can have that devotional feeling. But these rituals, these recitations, these embellishments of the teachings, they're really ways to keep the teachings in mind, right? They're not just empty gestures. So if they're helpful for you, then by all means, integrate them into your practice. And we do some at Common Ground before a program, like on Sunday morning. I think Shelley does some chanting and other recitations before or after the Wednesday evening program as well. So, and we often do these, especially on residential retreats, like we've been learning, sharing the merit and taking the refuges and precepts over the last few months. So hopefully you've had a chance to open up that document, and right at the top of it is this impermanence chant. And we'll do this together to begin our time. And just as a way to settle in, I'm not sure how well the sound of the bell comes through, but I'll ring the bell 3 times. Just let the sound of the bell, for whatever you can hear, let that be the object of awareness as we gather ourselves in the present moment. And we'll do the impermanence chant. Anicca vata sankhara uparawa yadamino upajito wa nirushanti te sang upasamo sukho. 2 more times. Anicca vata sankara upadawa yadamino upajitu wa nirushanti te sang upasamo sukho. Anicca vata sankara upadawa yadamino upajita wa niruchanti te sang upasamo sukho. And now the translation. All conditioned things arise and pass away. Understanding this deeply leads to the greatest happiness, which is peace. Let the words sink in as we settle into our meditation time, where we're going to be holding the body in a relatively upright, relatively relaxed and still manner, whatever works for us. Taking this one seat here in the present moment, really appreciating our experience of embodiment, this experience of the 5 physical senses of seeing and hearing and sensation, the sensations of sitting, and to some degree smelling and tasting. But these first few moments of a sit, we're learning or relearning how to inhabit this experience of embodiment. And in that way, we're purifying any irritation, any habits of disconnection. So in a way, we're learning that it's safe to say yes. Yes to this embodied experience, this sitting body, seeing, hearing body. It's like this. And even this initial part of our meditation, this part that we might call settling into the present moment, it's all about renunciation. For example, we're renouncing any habits to be distracted, to be lost in thought about this or that, and choosing to be present, to be, in a sense, exposed to the reality of embodiment. A big, generous yes, it's like this. Feels like this now. Nothing needs to be left out. It can be an inclusive yes to the experience of embodiment as it actually is. Of course, changing. It's not a static or a set experience. It's a changing reality of sensation and sound and sight. Feel free to close your eyes if you find that helpful. Keeping the body relaxed and relatively still. And we'll go through many of the mindfulness of breathing instructions from the Buddha. But in particular, we'll look or realize that these are all instructions that involve renunciation, letting go. So the first instruction the Buddha gives is to establish mindfulness to the fore, which is a renunciation of distractedness, because we're choosing to remember that this experience of sitting is being known here and now, moment by moment. This is being known, being felt. So find a way to value this present moment awareness. Use the experience of the sitting, breathing body to remember, oh yeah, this is how it is. This is the present moment being known. Sitting is like this. And the next important instruction we get from the Buddha in these mindfulness of breathing instructions is to take up for a period of time a more exclusive attention to breathing in and breathing out. The ordinary sensations in the body corresponding to breathing in, and the ordinary sensations in the body that correspond to breathing out. So it can be as simple as that touching at the nostrils as the air goes in and out. Or it might be that more general sense of the rising of the abdomen and expansion of the rib cage with the in-breath, and the contraction and falling of the abdominal wall with the out-breath. But whatever is easy in terms of feeling the physicality of breathing in, feeling the sensations of breathing out, and with this more exclusive attention to the breathing process, it's a profound renunciation of anything else that the mind might pay attention to now. Because we're choosing to pay attention to this one natural process of breathing in and breathing out. Choosing to be interested in just this ordinary natural process and letting go of everything else for this period of time. So let's take up this profound renunciation of the diversity of our experience and instead choose to attend to this simple process of breathing in and out. Attending to the sensations themselves, tracking the unfolding sensory experience of breathing in from the beginning to the end, and then the out breath from the beginning to the end. And it's okay to use a mental phrase if that helps. Breathing in is like this. Breathing out feels like this. Use that kind of a phrase if it's helpful. And remember to relax. And be willing to start over. We're experimenting with this very full or complete renunciation of the diversity of our experience by choosing to be interested in this very simple, ordinary process of breathing in and breathing out, to bring attention, this relaxed but continuous attention, mindful awareness to this ordinary process, breathing in, breathing out, And there's enough interest to discern the particular characteristics of each of the in-breaths and each of the out-breaths. Is it a shorter breath or a longer breath, smooth or rough? We don't have to name how the breath is, but there's just an intimacy, curiosity, meeting the breath as it is. As the awareness becomes more continuous and more simple, and in a way more unified in the knowing of the breathing in and breathing out, then notice that inner pleasant quality of the heart and mind. In Buddhism, we call it the pleasure of seclusion. The mind is secluded from the diversity of experiences, not pushed around, because it's just knowing this one simple thing, the breathing in, the breathing out, and to a large degree free of any gaps or breaks in that wise attention. And in a simple way, this is the joy of renunciation, or one aspect of the joy of renunciation, the simplicity of the mind, knowing the breath coming in, going out. And when you feel ready, we cultivate a more inclusive awareness as the breath comes in. Breathing in, experiencing the totality of the body, the sitting body. Breathing out, opening, receiving the experience of the whole body. So now the renunciation, we're renouncing distractedness, but we're having a more inclusive awareness of the present moment. Breathing in, experiencing the whole body just as it is. Breathing out, experiencing the whole body just as it is. And again, we use that interval of breathing in as a simple container. Can the heart be intimate with the whole body for this relatively short period as I breathe in? Can I be interested and open to the experience of the whole body as I breathe out? Nothing is left out. And we're really interested in cultivating this inclusive, non-discriminative awareness of the body, in the sense that we don't have favorites, pleasantness, unpleasantness, all the neutral sensations in the body. So for that duration of breathing in, a big hearty yes, the body feels like this now. And as we're breathing out, a big hearty yes, this is how it is. Can this be okay, this body feeling like this now? And notice the calming effect of that inclusive awareness of whole body. And notice how the calm over time tends to spread and deepen throughout the body. This is a very natural and inevitable healing of the body and the mind. And it expresses itself as a healing calm felt in the body, spreading and deepening in the body. So that's the fourth instruction. The Buddha invites us to experience the calm as we're breathing in. Experience this deepening and spreading calm as we're breathing out. To keep that sense of calm, bodily calm, in mind as we breathe in and breathe out. So work with these last two steps, the whole body awareness and the presence of calm when it becomes apparent. And of course, our habit is to want to attend to the restlessness in the body or the unpleasantness, tension in the body. But this fourth instruction is inviting us instead to keep calm in mind as you're breathing in. to notice and keep calm in mind as you're breathing out. So it might initially be quite faint or not at all predominant in terms of the experience of the body, the sitting body. But wherever there is the beginnings of calm in the body, then just keep that in mind as you're breathing in a relaxed way. Keep it in mind as you're breathing out. And again, if you need a phrase to support this, you could repeat something like experiencing calm or experiencing bodily calm. You could use that phrase with your in and out breath. So it means we have to renounce our habit of paying attention to where there's tension in the body, and instead cultivate a new habit of noticing the deepening and spreading sense of calm in the body. It's a training, a really beautiful, wholesome training. And when there's enough of this mind-body healing, resulting in a somewhat pervasive sense of bodily calm, the body settled, then in the background you might be able to notice some mental joy, this lightness of the heart, or you could call it a buoyancy, brightness of the heart and mind. So the Buddha's instruction, the fifth one, training ourselves while breathing in to experience, to pay attention to the joy, keep it in mind. And while breathing out, learning how to keep joy, this lightness of heart in mind. And again, initially it might be quite subtle or seemingly nondescript. But have this wholesome intention to notice joy in the heart and mind. A kind of lightness, openness, a sense of the free flow, everything happening on its own. And of course, it's going to be relatively subtle, like a visceral smile of the heart, bright, light. And we just keep it in mind as we're breathing in, and we keep it in mind as we breathe out as best we can. And it can be as simple as repeating the word joy as you breathe in and again as you breathe out, just as a kind of support for keeping it in mind. So we're renouncing all the other aspects of the heart we might bring to mind, And choosing just to be aware of joy as we breathe in and breathe out. And now, if it's possible, choose to be interested in this more subtle and beautiful, more resonant happiness we call sukha, which can get translated as ease of the heart. So instead of the bright and energetic quality of joy, choosing to be aware of ease as you're breathing in, and that more easeful contentment as you're breathing out. So in a way, we're renouncing, we're letting go of the more bright quality of happiness in lieu of this more beautiful, refined, peaceful kind of happiness we could call ease of the heart. Breathing in, experiencing, noticing this ease, while breathing out, noticing, being intimate with this sense of ease of the heart. We're letting ease become a good friend. Keeping it close, not forgetting. This ease has the flavor of contentedness. And it leads to a really beautiful quality of dispassion. And this is noticed just in terms of the way the mind is relating to thoughts and other mental activities, perceptions, and the different feelings that come and go. And you'll notice that the mind is capable of being more dispassionate and spacious and equanimous with all the different activities, perceptions and thoughts and reactions. And this dispassionate way of being with thought tends to quiet the mind, the thinking mind down. So mental activity becomes quieter. These are the next two instructions from the Buddha. To notice the mental activity from this place of dispassion. Oh yeah, it's just thoughts, just feelings, Just this mental activity coming and going as it does, and how that spacious attitude tends to quiet all this mental activity down. And see if you can actually be aware of the quieting of the mind as you breathe in, the relative quieting of the thinking mind as you breathe out. You're not trying to make anything happen, you're just noticing this natural process. Because there's a lot of ease, there's dispassion. Because there's dispassion, mental activity quiets down. It's not being fed by attachment. And with the quieting of the mind, the ninth instruction, breathing in, experiencing the space of the knowing mind, experiencing the heart of the present moment, not the activity of the body or mind, but just the space itself of the moment. Of course, this is subtle. We do our best to notice the space of the present moment as we breathe in and breathe out. Appreciate this empty, quiet space. Keeping it in mind and really sensing the stillness and silence and peacefulness of this aspect of the present moment. And maybe realizing in moments the sense of self, the sense of selfing dropping away. The space of the present moment empty of self-centered drama. Just nature, empty of selfing. So we'll just sit together for another few minutes in silence. And for this last few seconds, allow the eyes to open if you'd like. And as we just sit, holding the body relatively still for a few more moments, Just on our own, the Buddha talks about the joy of renunciation. So just examining our own heart, our own life right here, right now. And just sense, is there a joy, a lightness that arises with the heart that isn't dependent on things being different than they are right now? The joy of contentedness, for example, the joy of not needing things to be different. Doesn't mean this moment is perfect or that there isn't suffering. It just means there are ways not to postpone that lightness of heart, even as the world remains imperfect, even as my life is imperfect. So let's take a moment and adjust the body as you need to, so you'll be comfortable. So stretch a little. And while you're doing that, I'll just do the announcements now. We always seem a little tight with time at the end. And the first thing I want to mention is Ajahn Chandako, a longtime teacher here at the center that's visited once a year or every other year, probably for more than 15 years, I think, and maybe even up to 20 years now. And he's been a Buddhist monk for over 25 years and the abbot of Vimutti, a wonderful monastery near Auckland in New Zealand. And though Ajahn was born here in Minnesota, so he does return and connect with family, and where we get the blessing of him teaching at the center. So he'll teach this Wednesday at 6 p.m., both on Zoom for those of you out of town, but also in person for anybody who wants to come into the building. And the other thing, and this is just a great walking, talking example of renunciation, because Buddhist nuns and Buddhist monks, they shave their head, they renounce their hair, they renounce their clothes, they can't even feed themselves. They renounce that independence in terms of getting food for themselves. They're dependent on lay people to feed them every day. So at 10:45 this Wednesday, if you're in town, come to the center, bring some food, sort of potluck style, and be part of this traditional practice of renunciation where the monks and nuns choose to be dependent on lay people. They renounce their independence. They can't even store food overnight. Every day, if they're going to eat, they have to be in this receptive mode where they receive food from lay people. It's really a beautiful thing. And then we usually have a really nice Dharma conversation at the end of the meal. So it will be 10:45 on Wednesday until about 12:30. So if you're in town, come join us for that wonderful thing. And then there's time to practice at Common Grounds Retreat Property on Saturday the 24th. Gabe and others in the office will help organize carpools out so you get to know members of the community. That's 9:30 to 4:30 at the retreat property, which is about an hour and 20 minutes out of town. And it will give you a chance to see what the community has been building now for about 7 years out there. Really have invested a lot of the community's funds and sweat and hard work. And it's really turning out beautifully. So encouraging people to get out there if that makes sense. And also there's an intro class beginning this Tuesday night and many other programs coming up. You can check the calendar for other things. Oh, I forgot to mention Ajahn talk on Wednesday, Ajahn Chandako's talk at 6 p.m. It's titled American Pie, Dharma Reflections on a Nation. Right? So just like we can look at our own life with that Dharma lens of cause and effect, of natural, impersonal unfolding, we can look at communities, including our nation, right? The ignorance in our nation, the goodness in our nation is a natural and impersonal unfolding of many causes and conditions. And Ajahn going to talk about this on Wednesday night. So join in for that. And as we begin, this is the last week I'll be talking about renunciation, and it's really the bridge to the next parami. We're talking about these 10 wholesome, beautiful qualities of the heart. We have generosity, morality or moral sensitivity. Renunciation is the third. Wisdom is the fourth. Energy, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. And as I've been saying, we don't need to master all of them. If you get good at any one of these wholesome qualities of the heart, you're going to start noticing all the other ones backing it up naturally. So don't make it this big should, oh, I should learn how to do this, I should become that kind of person. Just see which of these wholesome qualities you're already naturally interested in, drawn to, and then notice the others as you keep that first one in mind. But as a teaching, I'm going to go through all of them in the weeks ahead. So we're moving on to wisdom next week, but it's a very natural development, like to the degree we understand how stinginess is not the way to be a happy person, and we cultivate generosity. Well, we see that the best thing we can give others is our commitment to non-harming. That's sila, that's morality or moral sensitivity. It's the greatest gift, or one of the greatest gifts, as we interact with each other and the wider world or wider communities. Imagine if we really notice it's possible for me to show up giving everybody this deep, resonant valuing of non-harming, so that I'm really paying attention because I don't want to contribute to more suffering for myself or others. That's a beautiful gift, which naturally leads to this insight. And it really is an insight, it's an awakening where we see or learn something about letting go. I mean, we all get letting go as a concept, but to see that all the ways that our mind, our heart has been taught to grip with attachment, that actually there's another option, which is non-attachment, not being gripped. And it's not like we can't have an opinion. We don't have to grip, have a fixed opinion in order to have an opinion. We can have an opinion and it can be held without attachment. So as new data comes in, there's no fixation on that particular opinion or idea, and a new idea naturally forms. We think that our ideas, our opinions, our beliefs, our patterns, our routines, that will sort of get lost in sort of the wishy-washiness if we don't have that rigidity of attachment. So this is really what this third parami, this investigation that hopefully we've all been part of these last few weeks, this is really what we're up to. We're really like, is it true that there's some joy, some natural joy? It's the joy of being in alignment with reality. It's not like the joy of like, I'm better than everybody else because I know how to let go. It's really like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to work. In a way, attachment is an abomination, right? It's sort of, it's a pattern that has its own feedback mechanism. Because when I'm attached, the grip of that attachment, the tension of that attachment in a neurotic way makes me feel real. Because I've, as an ignorant human being, I've associated feeling real with being tight. And so when I'm attached, I feel real because I'm tight. And when I have moments of non-attachment, like I said a few moments ago, we don't know, we're not familiar with the absence of that grip of attachment. So this is really what we're trying to learn. And maybe those of you who are going to stay for the small groups, I'm assuming Shannon is here to help with that today. But one way or another, one of us will organize small groups for everyone.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, great, Shannon. Yeah, so the last 15 minutes or so at 11:45-ish, we'll break for those who can stay in the small groups. And you can talk about like this learning, because you won't learn it everywhere in your life, but maybe little pockets of your life that feel more safe for you to explore being a human being without attachment. So for example, those of you like Shannon who are raising children, that may be not the easiest place to learn non-attachment, right? Especially when your children are relatively young. But those of you who have children who are 45, that may be a really good place to realize non-attachment. Like it or not, I think this person is old enough to make their own choices, including choices I think are going to lead to suffering. So I'm not going to practice control. I'm not going to practice holding the idea that they should do what I think. I'm going to practice letting go and seeing them as a natural process, navigating their own life, bumping into the hard edges that they bump into. But I'm not going to project my attachment onto my relationship with my 45-year-old, child. Not really a child anymore, but son or daughter or whatever, right? I'm just going to love them as a natural process, not love them because I'm, feeling in charge or somewhat responsible for how they do their life. So this would be really a great thing to share, because the Dharma is really pragmatic in this way, really realistic. It's not an optimistic path, what the Buddha taught, and it's not a pessimistic path. An optimistic path would be, if I just get my act together, or if the world gets their act together, then we can get to this utopian place with sense experience where we all have exactly what we need to be happy, and then we're all set. That would be an optimistic view, that humanity could somehow, or an individual could somehow get to some place with their sense experiences, that everything is just right and we can count on that, right? So it doesn't really make sense when you think about it. This optimistic vision of sense reality, it's not going to happen. But if you still think it can happen, which we all sort of do, go for it. Just pay attention to see whether you're getting anywhere in that pursuit of finding stable happiness through your sense experiences. A pessimistic view, which also ultimately doesn't make sense, is thinking giving up on sense experience somehow leads to happiness. It doesn't. If you don't believe me, try it. Try giving up on sense. Here we are with a body, a sensitive heart, and we give up on it. We become negative about it. We become nihilistic about it. See if that leads to a resonant happiness. We've all tried it in particular ways, in moments at least, and it doesn't work. And the Dharma, what the Buddha taught, was a very realistic or a very pragmatic approach, which is, okay, I'm a sensitive human being. I feel I can train my mind, my heart, to stabilize around this experience here in the present moment of being a sensitive human being. Sensitive to morality, like to harming and non-harming, sensitive to the ordinary pleasures of sense experience and the ordinary pain of bumping my head or experiencing loss, right? Those unavoidable things that happen to us human beings. I can really stabilize. And then what am I going to investigate here? Well, I'm going to investigate the reality of pleasure, of gratification, of getting what I want, because it's a real thing as a human being. When things turn out the way we want them to, that's a particular experience. We should really get to know what it is and what it isn't. Because telling ourselves that falling in love is a fool's game, right? That, like, having this overlay, like where I'm leading, or my life is sort of governed by an opinion. Love sucks. Falling in love doesn't work. That actually, it doesn't help. What helps is when we do fall in love, to have a very clear, pragmatic sense of what it is and what it isn't. What is the actual pleasure that comes with being in that kind of relationship with another human being? And what is the drawback? And just having an ongoing, honest assessment of the reality of pleasure and pain, of gain and loss. And then because what the Buddha realized in his own life is by getting very clear about gratification and very clear about the drawbacks of my mind being oriented towards sense experience as if it's going to deliver something, being attached to sense experience, getting very honest about the drawback, getting really honest about what it does deliver, actually illuminates how to live as a sensitive human being. Like it illuminates this path of renunciation, this path of letting go. Or I love this from Ajahn Chah, one of the great important meditation teachers, Buddhist monk, who was quite influential in the Dharma, these teachings of the Buddha coming to the West over these last 50 years or so. And he's dead now, but he taught until the 90s, early 90s. But anyway, his simple description or translation of nirvana, this word that usually is the cessation of craving, but he calls it the realization of this heart free of grasping. So we're realizing something that's here and now. The awakening, the process of awakening is about realizing something that's here and now, right here in the center, in the heart and mind, that is absent of grasping, absent of attachment. Now, do we know that experience? I mean, as a practitioner, we're probably, because we're stabilizing present moment awareness more and more, we're probably having a more honest, clear, felt sense of what attachment is. And that actually is very useful, like this honest sense, oh, this is the heart with attachment. This is what it's like when the mind is attached. See, that's different than judging it or hating myself because I'm attached. It's coming from this place of balanced present moment awareness that isn't about judging. It's just like a mirror reflecting back. Oh, yeah, this is what it feels like when the mind is attached. Because the more we see that clearly, the more the intuition of what non-attachment is forms in the heart, not that, right? We need to have a clear sense of what it's like to be bound up, entangled with, attachment, to have the intuition of what non-attachment, non-grasping is. Because it's the absence of this weight of entangled attachment. It's not that. And that's sort of what we're looking at, like when we get clear about the gratification, when we're able to be with nice, pleasant sense experience, what we want to happen, we want to be really intimate with that. So we know it clearly in the heart. Oh yeah, this feels good. It's temporary, it's limited, but truthfully, it feels good. And I can get a real honest sense of both that it feels good and its limitation, and how any dependency, any wanting it to be more than what it is, like wanting it to save me. Oh, this relationship, the love I'm feeling with my partner right now, it's very good. And any sense of me wanting this good feeling to make me whole, that's not good, right? Trying to feed on the wholesome interaction with a friend or a lover or family member or your pet, and you're having a nice, wholesome moment together. But as soon as there's part of the mind that's trying to extract some kind of permanent safety from that good experience, in a way, the mind has spoiled it. Because now what's dominating in the mind is the drawback to attachment. It's not the experience that's neurotic or unwholesome, but the attachment to it is unwholesome, is a drawback, is a kind of dead weight in the heart, right? And the heart sinks. So we have to study both of these, the gratification and the drawback. And then it just dawns on the mind, oh, so I have to learn how to be a sensitive human being with sense experiences, pleasant and unpleasant, wholesome and unwholesome, but free of attachment. Then, when good things happen to me, I'll have that ordinary experience, but sometimes really beautiful experience of gratification, these wholesome, pleasant moments that come our way. For hopefully, we're not just receiving unpleasant experience, but where we've learned not to build a sense of self on those wholesome, pleasant experiences. And when difficult experiences come our way, we've learned not to build a sense of self on the unpleasant, painful experiences that come our way. So we might get sick. I know some of you have been in the hospital in really terrible situations, just the chaos of the medical system and the humiliation of medical procedures and just the reality of having an aging body or a sick body. And this much more than I myself know, because I've been fortunate not to have that many serious illnesses. So this well, like the drawbacks of any sort of dependency on health and well-being. And so when we pay attention, this is the great thing that mindful awareness, wisdom awareness does. It will tease out anything that's optimistic and anything that's pessimistic from the mind. And we'll be left with this radiant, pragmatic, beautiful balance. Like, yeah, this is how it is now. And you know what? It never makes sense to get attached. It never makes sense for the heart to depend on sense experience for anything other than what it is in this moment. It's just this momentary experience of pain, and it will change. It's just this momentary experience of pleasure, and it will change. But it doesn't mean we dismiss the present moment. It still is what it is. We're just not, the only thing we're removing from our life as a sensitive human being in relationship with everybody else that we're in relationship with, including the wider world, the only thing we're teasing out is the attachment, is the wrong idea that, I think I can get it set up just right, so I'll have what I want and I'll really be safe because of the sense experiences that I've lined up for myself. Or we've slid into the negative, to the pessimistic. I'm never going to get what I want, so I'm here to give it, I'm here to sort of like, I want out. I'm here to escape, because freedom doesn't come from getting out of our sense experience, because we're just imagining in our mind a different sense experience where I'm not dependent on sense experience. We have to realize non-attachment right in the experience of being a sensitive human being, embracing, fully inhabiting our likes and dislikes, our preferences, our attractions and repulsions. We have to make peace with this reality that we're inhabiting, not imagining there's some place we can go. This is really, I think, cool about the Buddhist cosmology. And again, I would take it more as a teaching story than some metaphysical reality, but who knows, right? I don't know what the ultimate metaphysical reality is. But they have this idea of realms of, beings in different realms, very beautiful, refined realms where there aren't even bodies of light, even beyond that sort of angelic realm. And really terrible realms of icy hells and hot hells and sharp hells and basically any kind of terrible situation you can imagine. There's a hell realm there and everything in between. And the idea is all of these very refined realms, like where I have no responsibilities and I don't even have a physical body to worry about. I'm just like loving kindness or just light and very simple. And I am going to live for an incalculable amount of time. But those they also come and go. So we don't actually find what the heart intuitively is drawn to, which is that release. And this is the great thing about that heart free from grasping, that idea of like linking up the fruit of the practice with the coolness and the peacefulness of letting go, of renunciation, the heart that doesn't need things to be different. I mean, just like each of us now, let's just take, we don't have that much time, but let's just take a little minute or two to just sense our own life. Like, there is this body as it is. There's my life situation, the relationships that are already, my so-called karmic situation. Like, these relationships aren't going anywhere, with our siblings, with our partner, or this job, and at my age, now that I'm 63, that, a lot of, so much has already been set in motion that not a lot is going to change at this point. I mean, some things obviously can still change. So part of it is just like getting comfortable, growing a willingness to grow roots into this moment, into our life in this moment, as opposed to this ongoing fantasy that, yeah, but when, if only, when I get my act together, then. And it's sort of like, if there's any real freedom, right? If the wise people before us have uncovered real release, real love, radiant love, healing love, real release, then the release that they've discovered would have needed necessarily been right here in the middle of their life. That's the only freedom that's of any value to us, because this is where we are, right? I don't want a theoretical freedom like when I get to some theoretical place called heaven. I'm curious about a teacher like the Buddha who says there's release here and now. Being a human being with an aging body, dealing with life and death, dealing with the reverberations of so much suffering, so much injustice, so much unfairness in the world, whether we're a more privileged person or somebody who's experienced a lot of the direct experience of oppression or being marginalized, being taken advantage of, being abused. Wherever we are, it's not easy being in this world. So what does release look like when it's like this? What is the spiritual release when it's like this? And this is really that joy of renunciation. And it's really the thread we're following the whole path. Right from the beginning, when we get a little teaching on generosity, and a wise teacher tells us, hey, pay attention to what it feels like when you're stingy, and pay attention to what it feels like when you're more generous, and let that inform how you live your life, right? And we just start following that thread, and then we get another teaching. Notice when it's like when you don't care about whether you're harming others. You don't care whether you're stepping on ants or, whatever, taking advantage of other people, as long as you get what you want. How does that work for you? Versus, what does it feel like when you're living your life as if it does care, that you do care about non-harming, not adding harm, not adding suffering? So this is really the thread of letting go. It's like we're letting life and being sensitive to life. We're letting it teach us. And what does it teach us? It teaches us that non-attachment is the way. And that's why we call it, we do call it Buddhism, but we shouldn't call what we do Buddhism. It's really Dharma, because the word Dharma or Dhamma is the Pali version of that word. It means the way it is. And the more we align with the way it is, the more it just becomes illuminated in our heart. Oh yeah, I may not be able to manifest non-attachment, but I've got this deepening confidence that the whole point of life, if there is a point, the whole point is learning to live with more and more of this non-attachment, this non-grasping. It's almost like our life, whatever we're doing, ordinary things like washing dishes, having a chat with a friend, or more challenging stuff like negotiating some difficult thing with a partner, it all becomes more and more like a free fall or a natural process, a frictionless process. And I use this because I've had enough experience over the years of my practice that I have some confidence that life can actually be this frictionless. So when I'm in a sticky place where there's some heaviness or some resistance, then I remind myself that it's possible that in this moment where it feels like there is so much resistance or so much friction or so much heaviness, that the friction, the heaviness, the resistance isn't what it appears. It appears like it's real, but when I am reminded of what life has shown me, I'm curious, maybe this friction isn't really friction. Because this is really the thread of non-attachment. It's like a growing confidence that the release of non-attachment is the underlying reality. And the tension and heaviness of attachment is an overlay that the ignorant mind, the habit-based mind, keeps projecting onto the moment by moment. We project or we perceive the moment as if the grip of attachment is rational and needed. So what the point of a talk like this, and then in your small groups, is just to examine those places in your life where you've had some curiosity. Is attachment needed here? What would it be? What is it like when I'm in this moment as a human being with these responsibilities, but I momentarily at least drop the idea that this moment needs attachment? Like an example might be if you're having a very intense argument with somebody who has a different opinion. Maybe it's a teenage child of yours, or maybe a friend with a different opinion, and you really care about your opinion and they care about theirs. And maybe these teachings come to mind in the middle of the argument. And there you are, and you continue the discussion, the argument, but now you realize, I don't need to be attached to my idea or attached to the idea that they're wrong. I can continue discussing this with this person, but I don't need to be fixed. I don't need the grip of attachment. I can renounce that. And that's really the point of this talk. And it naturally leads to the next parami of wisdom. Because wisdom is really understanding this groundless, that attachment is really the aberration. It really doesn't belong. But here it is, because it's such a dominant theme in our mind, given our habits. But the takeaway from the talk is just to become a little bit more open, curious, like, do I really need to be attached? Do I really need to be certain? What would it be like to operate as a human being with actual responsibilities? I guess still got to do what I need to do, but without the tightness of attachment or fixation. Does it really make sense to renounce attachment? And I'll just read this last passage. It's one of my favorite. They're different translations. This is one nice. I think this one is from Ajahn Thanisaro, a Western Buddhist monk who does a lot of translation. Always, always an awakened person sleeps in ease. They are totally unbound, who doesn't adhere to sensual pleasures, who is without acquisitions and cooled, having cut all ties and subdued fear in the heart, calmed, one sleeps in ease, having reached peace of awareness. So please continue to find ways to be curious about this deeper teaching, the renunciation of attachment, the renunciation of grasping. And just play with it in a playful way. Don't make it a big should. And we use it to judge it. Oh, you're attached, you idiot. Don't you know that the Buddha taught, right? So it's not that. It's just to be in a more playful wait, look at this. The heart's attached again. Because if we're honest, we're going to see attachment everywhere in ourselves and in others. So don't be surprised. But just start to be curious around the edges. Well, what would it feel like to abandon this attachment in this moment for a moment? Does the whole world implode? Or does it just get lighter and clearer? And then report back. So again, big thanks to Shannon and Nancy who allow us to have these small groups. And those of you who are in the building, you'll have your small groups. And again, just like I mentioned, many things to talk about, as I mentioned, but just stay on the Zoom and Shannon will divide you up and introduce it in just a moment. And wishing everybody a good week. I also want to remind folks that starting tonight on Sunday evenings, Minnesota time, 7 to 8:30, we have a drop-in class. It's basically the same talk and discussion, but will be in person for those who live locally. And the Sunday morning is going to remain primarily like we're doing it, a Zoom-oriented program, but people can come to the building if you want to sit with other people on Sunday morning as well. And lots of other things opening up to be both in person and online. We're really committed to doing this hybrid where we have either the live stream or the Zoom. So tomorrow night, I'll send an email out to the Buddhist Studies folks, but Buddhist Studies tomorrow night will be on Zoom and in person, and we'll have a link out to everyone on that email list on Monday morning. Take care, everybody, and thank you, Shannon. I'll make you host now.
Thank you, Mark, and everyone. If you're staying for the small group, we will talk about Mark's suggestion. So those moments in your life where you have noticed you've been able to not be attached, and what that's felt like and looked like. So we'll just wait another minute and I will break us up into groups of about 4.
And Shannon, because I made you host, would you shut the live on YouTube off?
Oh, yes.